Hi, Kate.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay, thanks. Yeah,
Wait.
David's minutes. You thought it was 4:30.
Okay. All right. We can wait for him. We can have a chat anyway, and he can join us.
Oh, sorry.
So, where are you? You're in
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got some bits of Greece on the top there above you.
We've got some bits of the Parthian. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Very
They're
nice.
from Elgin's marbles, first cut.
Yeah.
As you do in your kitchen.
Yeah. So it's
Right.
it's incredible, Kate. Ah, here he is. Look at that.
Yeah.
Bang on cue, nearly. Hello, David.
Hey there, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Have you survived from last week? I gather you had a particularly busy end of.
Yeah. It's just it's all the marketing coming in. And
Okay.
Stuff like that.
What a nightmare.
The whole transition has been really complicated.
I bet. Yeah. And I guess you've got to be super transparent about the whole thing too now. I mean, even more transparent than ever before, of course.
Yeah, what are you saying?
Nothing. No. But no, it just must be very difficult to demonstrate, your attention, if you like, to the detail of any work that you're looking at, particularly practical work.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a certain element of it that we're kind of having to second guess, predict what marks they would have got.
Yeah.
And that thing, with the final push for the degree show, where everything sort of everybody raises their game, that obviously didn't happen. So.
Yeah. So I remember, it's a year ago since we were in Venice, or pretty much a year. And I remember, David, you rushed back. I think you rushed back, not rushed to Venice, but you rushed back because you were back into marketing straight away. Was that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Busy time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the year since, it seems to have gone like a flash. I mean, I don't know about for you, but for me, it's definitely gone very quickly. Do you think that work, I mean, you made an incredible piece of work in Venice for Live in the Universe. Do you think in any way that had any bearing on the current situation?
I mean, to say there was anything to do with the current situation, it'd just be, looking at coincidence. I think it's kind of, I mean, there was an element of it that was to do with kind of disaster. And crisis.
Well, that's
so
true.
certainly,
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, the work, it was called a Day in the Life of the City, and it was thinking about the situation that Venice is in.
Yeah.
And it was very much an intuitive reaction to that. We came and we didn't know what we were going to do at all. We bought some. I mean, we'd thought about. We'd obviously sent the crow over, and we needed to bring a few things, but we didn't know how it would play out. But we were interested in seeing if we could ourselves become work, and we've never done that before. So that was quite an extraordinary thing for us to do.
So it's quite a. I mean, was it? I mean, I imagine you. Did you have any apprehension before you did it? I mean, doing something like that for the first time is, it's tricky.
Yeah. I mean, I think we wanted to do something where we kind of had a number of props, or there was some threads of thinking that we had that we were going to bring, but we didn't know how we were going to weave those things together. And we wanted to do a kind of performative thing, but where the material of the performance would be our response to the response we were getting. So much in the way that when you're working on any artwork, the thing is speaking back to you. So we expect the audience to kind of do that.
And you two work together a lot. So, I mean, working together in a performative way where you can only give kind of signal. I mean, you had some thoughts before, I guess, but then once it kicks off and you're in character in your cases, because you were a priest and a nun, a very convincing priest and nun, I have to say. I mean, and you're in a major Italian city where there are monasteries just around the corner. I mean, I remember meeting you crossing one bridge just around the corner from our palazzo and thinking, my goodness, they look like the real thing. I mean, it's totally convincing. And given that palazzo had people walking in who, I mean, some of them didn't even know there was a show going on there. Because they were using the building for other levels of the building for other reasons. That must have been quite. How did you feel about, I mean, being an imposter in a way? Or weren't you an imposter because you weren't an imposter in the exhibition? You were allowed in that context.
Yeah, it was interesting just being in the street. Obviously, in a very Catholic country, but people didn't think that, I mean, they didn't treat us as if we were in costume.
No.
They just treated us as if we were a nun and a priest.
Yeah.
And what was immediately interesting was that I kind of, I mean, you could say there's a bit of a parallel now with the way people move about in a city. Everybody's really aware of each other and avoiding each other. Yeah. And there was definitely a different reaction to us from the public because we were dressed the way we were. So people would sort of bow their heads as it were going by and acknowledge me, but they would completely ignore Kate. Completely, really? She became more invisible, and I became far more visible.
Yeah. Gosh, how did you feel about that, Kate? I mean, as a woman, as a modern woman, suddenly becoming invisible.
It was really curious because the whole, like you said about the idea of the imposter, but David and I, our background is very similar, how we were brought up, how we were educated. Okay. I went to a Catholic, convent school. Yeah. David was taught by priests. So it's a kind of an arena really that we feel very comfortable in. I felt more of an imposter as an artwork in the gallery space, strangely enough, because I have not performed before, so I was more self-conscious of that. Yeah. But actually, in costume, I realized that I had observed how religious, how people in the holy orders and things, how they behave, how they kind of interact with the world. And that was very easy to do.
And did you encounter any real nuns and priests on your, when you were in your parts? I mean, what would have that been like?
I don't know.
We were aware that we hadn't really thought it through, that actually what you don't see a lot of is a single nun with a single priest. You often see one priest with a lot of nuns. So we realised we hadn't thought that must be quite odd in itself and a bit slightly transgressive. So there were moments that, but because it was only for a day, we could do it and get away, because it was very kind of immediate, wasn't it? And we kind of just behaved, and had we been doing it every day, I think it would have been more things would have come up that we'd have to address immediately. I think.
No, it's interesting. You were talking about your piece of being about disaster and Venice, and we were talking to Caroline and I were talking to Luca and Francesca from Venice Art Factory, who are the people who held our hand whilst we were in Venice, and they talked about the floods back in November, which were the second floods. So this is a very real, it's a very real piece of work about very real problems, a very real city. Interesting.
Yeah, no, it was kind of we had, and then we'd realised that we were very attracted from the invitation from yourself and Caroline because of the subject matter and also the location. And we were aware we've done a number of works and we respond a lot to being in the proximity of water, whether it's the sea or lakes, as in the Lake District. We've made works in response to the tsunami in Japan. So that was really, for us, the kind of really big impetus and interest.
So tell us about the year since, because I know you had a piece of work in Berkeley Square that was unveiled just before the world went down into lockdown.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's curious that because the work, as you know, was made in order to to be a totally interactive piece for people to visit and spend time around and re-see that particular location with new kind of eyes. So yeah, it's been unfortunately abandoned, and but we did because they were scheduled to have changes of imagery that were on the sculpture. We did carry that through. They're not. Well, no, we made them for the sculpture, and we nearly got them made. They were printed, but they couldn't get. Then the lockdown really came in full force, and so they haven't been physically put there. But we did send the images out.
They went online, I think.
Yeah, and that changed also. Obviously, the situation that we found ourselves in changed the images that we produced for the second half of the work. We felt that we wanted to make something that reflected the current situation that everybody is in, rather than just be about that artwork itself.
And is the work still there in Berkeley Square, or has it been?
Yeah. We get reports from friends of ours who live there, and they take their daily exercise. And it's looking very lonely. But things are changing quickly in London. So.
I gather, yeah.
So we're here.
Very quickly. You probably wish you were down in London now, not in Edinburgh.
No, I mean, this is unusual because got caught up here because annually David and I do an exchange between the Royal College of Art and Edinburgh College of Art. So the week I came up for that, although the project didn't go ahead because it was industrial action. So I came up to join the picket line in solidarity. And we both got symptoms, COVID symptoms, and actually had to self-isolate. And that was the week before the lockdown, and I've been here ever since.
So do you think you've had it, the thing? We
do,
Well, that's kind of salutary in a way.
Well, we don't know because tested.
But it was too much. It was just it'd be too close, and it wasn't. I mean, it's kind of educated guess, but so it's meant that actually, because usually we spend a lot more time apart, and working separately, then come together for projects or residences or holidays. So this is quite an unusual situation for us to be in, particularly during term time. And to be in Edinburgh is fantastic because the city is just empty, and you can just really appreciate the amazing architecture. And
that must be great.
It is fantastic. So that's been.
So obviously, your teaching work, Kate, is at Royal College. You're at Edinburgh College of Art, David. Are you doing it all remotely as well, or are you able to go in? Or
no, it's all remote.
It's all remote. So I work in the front of the house. I go to work, but that's the Royal College is the front of the house, and David's in the back. So,
I like the hierarchy there, front and back.
It's quite peculiar.
Very so moving. I mean, do you think that work that you produced for Venice? Do you think it has? I mean, would you do performance again? I mean, has it moved your work forward to that extent? Do you think?
In that, I think in that kind of way, where it wasn't. I don't think I do a rehearsed performance as such, but to enter being in a role where people are unsure that you're in the role or not, I thought that was really interesting.
But I mean, also, your location that you had was a gift. I mean, going there and finding the font.
That was incredible.
It was so unexpected, but it all those signals there, all those things that we found and the location that you had really gave us the confidence that our instinct was right. But actually, this does make sense there, and the kind of the iconography that we were using, from the crow to the hourglass to obviously, the costumes and stuff. It's really.
And Caroline and I were talking about it the other day, and we're saying that maybe, of all of the artists that came out, probably you two it really did change, or not change, but sort of move your practice into a slightly different area.
Yeah, it was definitely a risk, and but we also knew it was only a day, and that in itself was brilliant for you to be able to take a risk, and for it to be equally effective and kind of transitory, change something.
Yeah. So you
sorry. There was a few happy accidents as well. That strange window that made, and then the gold chairs where we could make it look like there was a reflection, but it wasn't, and that was a bit spooky. Yeah. And then the crucifix that appeared in the space on the ground where the water started coming up through the floor. That was quite strange as well. So we were waiting for the lightning bolt next.
Careful, don't bring it on. So, I mean, are you managing, as well as teaching, obviously, are you managing to get work done at the moment? I mean, or
the work that we did do were the new images for the Berkeley Square piece, and then the two photographic. Before we were working with sort of digital collage, and then for the second half we made two photographic images of the frogs in the bucket, and they will go also to a show that was scheduled to be at Easter, this just gone in Ireland. So that's been postponed, so immediately once they're able to have the exhibition, they'll go there to a show.
So can you talk about your working practice a little bit, in terms of the way you two work together, and particularly on something like a photo collage? How does that manifest itself in terms of output from two different brains and two different sets of hands, I guess, as well, and eyes?
Well, I guess the idea of collage is it's so that we can move stuff about, it's not fixed. So we can alter things, and we also can scan things, and then because quite often we are working online
at a distance.
Now we're working together, we're beside each other, but quite often we just send images by email or we transfer, and things will go from being analog to digital, and we'll shift things around and then send them back to each other.
But often the new work, this new photographic work that we did during this time, that came from, we actually made a sculpture to make the photograph. So we worked together on the objects, and then they were photographed for the final image. I don't know how, it's kind of various how we kind of work.
And how does that, I was going to say, how does that, in terms of the Berkeley Square work, it's a big architectural, fabricated piece. How does do you make drawings for that, or do you work loosely with the fabricators, or do you get an architect engineer to draw it up for you from a conversation? How does that process work?
Yeah, we did that one. We were kind of walking around Edinburgh, just looking at the Georgian buildings there, because they kind of echoed the architecture in Berkeley Square, and then we just started thinking about I don't know.
Well, what was interesting, because we had some ideas which we did get fabricators to draw up, and we realised very quickly that that wasn't the route we wanted to take. Once we saw some sort of more concrete images. And then so that was in London, and then I came up to Edinburgh, and then we realised that we had to push this work through, but because obviously the great mirroring and we live in the Georgian part of Edinburgh, so that was great, connecting that with Mayfair. And so it's walking around and having a dialogue, both David, but with no intention really. It's just
we can show you the final inspiration is actually just here, which is this Georgian window here. So we ended up saying, why don't we create why don't we frame a view of the square in a classic Georgian window? And that's how that came about. And then we made just a cardboard model.
So did the dimensions of that model come from that window you just showed us?
Yeah.
It is literally.
So it's our picture.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. It's quite a nice story.
So one of the images on the piece is Kate actually sitting at that window. It's on the piece. We wanted other people to take photographs of themselves sitting.
Yeah. And was there did you have and what was going to be the output? I mean, if you wanted people to take photographs, was that just themselves and they'd put it on their own Instas, or did you have a system for collecting?
Yeah, we'd hoped that we have a page on the a website for the Friends of Mayfair or the Residence Society, so that address is on the actual sculpture, and we hope that people would send photographs of themselves sitting there, and then we would then work that into the next phase of the artwork. Things superseded that.
Does it have another life beyond Mayfair, or is that it for now with it?
That's it. We don't know sort of in terms of what Grosvenor or anybody would do, but we would like to think that because it is made to house. I mean, you can change the images.
Yeah, it's got those opening.
You can change the context. I mean, it was, and the idea is that it carries information or reflects whatever theme you want to put with it. So it's definitely, we've realised that it's a great construct for that, and can be. We'd love it to stay in the square, but actually move into the gardens, actually part of the square, or go somewhere else in that area. I mean, there was discussions, but nothing's final at the moment. We'd like to do it somewhere else. We'd like to also use something like that way of making a space that also operates as an exhibition space. In quite a portable way. We're thinking of sort of using that for, like art festivals or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was in a way, it seemed like a bonkers commission, that they wanted an artwork that was to have artworks on it, and also have information on it, and potentially.
So that was part of the commission. I see.
Yeah. So we at first we thought, they don't understand what they're asking for. But then, having solved the problem, we quite liked the solution we came up with.
So we're living in a very strange period of history at the moment. This last few months of lockdown, and I mean, you have sort of mentioned there are positives in that you can walk about the centre of Edinburgh and look at the beautiful architecture with without tourists getting in the way. Which I imagine must be a complete nightmare in Edinburgh. But are there any other positives that have come out in terms of your working lives or
I mean, in some ways we've kind of been thrown straight into this online teaching thing, so that's been quite intense. So I don't know if we'll kind of, that's something that we're yet to discover. Once all these exams are over and we no longer have that, if we're not spending the entire summer planning how we're going to teach online next year, then we may have some time to spend making stuff.
Are there any positives that have come out of the online teaching in terms of your future teaching? I mean, is there anything good? I can't imagine anything good about it, but be careful what you say.
Yes, it's too early to say. I mean, we're both very consumed in sort of our respective jobs, and it's great to be in that situation. You do have very different conversations with staff and students alike online. It does create a different kind of space. I mean, we are obviously, like most people, you can go out now, because of the lack of less traffic and things, what you notice more of the bird song and things. And that's been interesting for us in terms of like we've made work about magpies and the crow in Venice.
Nightingales.
And nightingale. So that's something that's really become, we're taking a lot of video and, so I think we're gathering quite a lot, but nothing has sort of, apart from the new images for Berkeley Square and this photographic show, not much. We've just been so consumed with dealing with the.
But it's mostly noticing the architecture in a different way. When there's no cars and no people.
That must be joy, isn't? I mean, it really must be joy in some way.
It's quite incredible. Because what you find is you find yourself looking up a lot more, because as you walk about, you're not avoiding bumping into people, and you're not conscious of crossing roads, and so you see things on corners that you've never seen before, because you'd always have your eye on the road, and so that's been really interesting.
I was talking to Judy Goldhill the other day, one of our artists and other artists, and her piece was about space and about looking out and looking back. And she lives in London, and she was saying that it's given her, and she's somebody who's interested in looking out at the stars and the planets, and she said it's been amazing because apart from the fact that we've had extraordinary atmospheric effects over the last few weeks and months, very clear skies, it has given her the opportunity to stand in the garden and look up in a way that she said she would normally maybe have been at the cinema or at the theatre or doing something altogether different. But now with this space we've got, time space, we can all do those things which perhaps we didn't before. I'm slightly aware, unfortunately, of Zoom time and Zoom time running out. So what the last question really, David and Kate, is about after all this comes to an end, this lockdown thing, and it seems to be loosening now, thank goodness. Is there something which you've missed terribly about being in the situation that you're desperate to go and engage with?
Well, I guess we have to say we've missed our parents and our children, first of all. But once we've seen them, I think, Kate, you've always wanted to go and see Brancusi's Endless Column and never got round to it.
Wow, yeah.
So
it has made me think about, I think this situation and also sort of a recent birthday has made me really think about time, as we did in Venice, but now it's my own mortality, and thinking how many summers or how many opportunities are left for myself, and what do I want, and I've been wanting to go there since I was 18, so it's ridiculous. And that's, I'd really like to do that.
I don't even know, is it in Bucharest or is it somewhere in
Romania?
It's in Romania,
in Târgu Jiu.
Okay, so out in the country.
I don't know how to say it, but so that's my kind of aim for this as soon as it happens. And also what kind of, because we would really enjoy going out for dinner and for meals, and now because we're cooking so much at home and trying all sorts of things, you think, well, actually, what would I eat if I went out? It's quite an odd thing to do that.
I love cooking. I like cooking at home and eating at home more than I do out anyway. So that's something.
Right.
But it's true. Yeah, I mean, all these things we've got used to doing, and you get engaged with something, I guess, which is Yeah.
I think we'll only know when we get to that point. I think it's quite a hard thing to predict the thing that you will,
of course,
go out of your way to go towards.
Yeah, but the Brancusi Endless Column is it's a nice one.
Yeah,
I wonder how many people have seen that. It's such an iconic piece of sculpture.
Absolutely. I think that
non-Romanians have been out there to look at it.
Seeing that work or being introduced to that work really kind of was the thing that shifted me into sculpture totally.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. In the what was that? The language of sculpture. I think that was.
Yeah, William Scott. Not William Scott. William Temple. No, Temple, isn't it? Yeah.
Turnbull. Yeah.
Is it?
It is Temple. Yeah, language. Yeah, it was.
Oh, right. Okay.
Have you read it recently? I hadn't read it for about 30 years, despite the fact I used to recommend students reading it. And actually, it's very difficult to read, I discovered.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it again.
It's written in a very old-fashioned way.
Right.
You're quite turgid. Sorry, William Turnbull, if you're out there.
Yes, for me.
Yeah. Good. Okay, guys. As I say, I'm sort of conscious that Zoom will run out on us, so I'm going to call it a day at that. And it's been great to see you both. I did see you, Kate, in Berkeley Square, but I haven't seen David since.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Yeah. Very nice to see you. And we will. I do have a connection with Edinburgh again now, so we might drop in on you one day when we're up there.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Great. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.